just started reading a book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Um, and I got through the first, kind of intro and chapter about Hitler and his early life, kind of how he grew up, his family. He moved to Vienna and more or less became homeless for a while, and just kind of that whole piece. But it's a really well written book. It's really well kind of documented and sourced. So it gives you a lot of quotes from like his diaries, quotes from Mein Kampf and other places. So it's written in such a way in which you feel like you get an understanding of him and the way he thinks, his math, as I might say. And the my takeaway from it, what I find interesting in it, is two, obviously super significant components to it. On the one hand, the obvious, the thing we all know, the thing that's historical and all that, is that he was an evil, hateful, angry person. He thought really highly of himself and his beliefs, and there were certain groups, obviously Jews among others, that were beneath him and below him, and he lacked the humanity to recognize or to understand that if you don't like somebody and you find them grotesque or whatever it is, that doesn't give you the right to mistreat them or do anything to them. I mean, it's wrong that you hold that view, likely, that those people are evil or disgusting or whatever it might be. But even if you allow for that, the action you're allowed to take on that, or that you should take on that, or what you can do about it, he didn't understand that, or at least didn't seem to have any gauge of that. He thought he was entitled to do whatever he wanted to do, and that created, or maybe I'm not sure which came first, but that was that hatred and that evil. So his objective in life was geared around that. That's what he was all about. He was so disgusted by these people and the world and aspects of it, and he genuinely believed you can do anything you wanted to do to correct that. So that's what he was focused on. So that's kind of the first component. The second component, which I wouldn't say is not known and not talked about, but I didn't appreciate it until I started to read this book, and perhaps there's more nuance to it than even we think about. But the second component is his genius, his mind, and I say that I don't know how brilliant he was on different topics, but I say that more in regards to thinking better, which almost seems blasphemous to say or horrible to say, to compliment someone like Hitler, someone that evil, and it makes me feel uncomfortable to say it, but his ability to think and his logic was much higher than I thought or gave him credit for. And I think I didn't give him credit for it, or I didn't assume that, because the other component is so illogical to me, is so wrong to me, is so unsophisticated and basic, that it would be shocking to me that somebody can have that view, but then also be able to think so clearly and logically on the other side. That doesn't seem like it would exist. But seemingly, and this is very early on in my reading and all that, but from his writing directly, when I read what Hitler writes, it's true. He did have that ability, and his observations of the political system and where people succeeded and where they failed and how to move people and influence people, his observation of that is clear, and his study of that is clear, and his application of actually putting it into effect towards that end, unfortunately. You see strong signs of that, and you see strong signs of what allowed him to do it was his ability to see things from all angles, his ability to have a deep understanding and a logical approach to it. And that's something I wasn't aware of or didn't want to believe was true. So it'll be very interesting as I continue to read this and see how it plays out. But for me, it makes sense, and probably for many, but that somebody who was able to do such horrific things, but just the magnitude of them, to have that big of an impact, would be unique in those two ways. And I think in those two traits they are so unique, but also in combination become unbelievably dangerous. Because if you set that objective, right, if you have such a deep hatred and view of what you can do to other people and how you can hurt them, and that becomes your objective, that horrific objective, and then you have the tools and the skills to actually deliver on it, perhaps better than anybody else, or at least as good as anybody else, that's what gets you somebody like a Hitler. And again, probably something that conceptually people aren't going to be shocked by and make sense, but for me, it puts it in my terms, and it helps me to understand who and what he was. So I'm very interested to see how the rest of the book goes.